America. I gave my best to you.
We do not need 4 more years of bluster and bumbling and chaos.
Who's going to tell him that the job he's currently seeking might just be one of those black jobs?
We're driving down the field. And boy, do we have the right team.
Together, let's all choose Kamala Harris!
On behalf of everyone whose story could only be written in the greatest nation on earth, I accept your nomination to be President of the United States of America.
Hello and welcome to Global Eye. I'm Parikshit Luthra. The final night of the 4-day Democratic National Convention has concluded with Kamala Harris accepting Democratic presidential nomination against Republican Donald Trump. Political heavyweights including Joe Biden, Barack Obama, Michelle Obama and popular names like Oprah Winfrey, Mindy Kaling, musician Stevie Wonder, among others, celebrities have backed Harris's candidature for the president's role. In all the speeches at the Democratic National Convention, Kamala Harris has been projected as the voice of common Americans and someone who can bring change. Despite her sudden entry after Joe Biden's withdrawal from the race, Kamala Harris has managed to attract huge support from all corners, giving a tough fight to Donald Trump. According to a Reuters report, Harris's election campaign has raised around $500 million since she became the Democrat presidential nominee. She had raised $200 million in the first week of her campaign in July. That compared to $48 million raised by Donald Trump's main fundraising group. If successful, she will be the first woman elected US president. So what has led to the rise of Kamala Harris? Let me now go across to Sanjay Bhattacharyya, former Indian ambassador, also Pramit Pal Chaudhuri, head of the South Asia Group at Eurasia, and Major General Dhruv Katoch, director at the India Foundation, and Padma, senior foreign journalist, also joining us on the program. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Let me begin with Ambassador Bhatia at this point. Ambassador Bhatia, she has been a remarkable story, isn't it? She has tried to come across as a strong leader, somebody who wants to give an equal opportunity to all Americans. How do you see her emerging from a vice president to a presidential nominee in the upcoming US election?
Well, let me say that, the nomination of Kamala Harris is truly exceptional because this is the first time that we have a woman of color and a woman who comes with an Asian background who is seeking to get to that top position. She herself said that this is the hardest of glass ceilings to break. But in many ways, I think the kind of popularity that she has garnered ever since she kind of got into the race at somewhat the last moment, she has been able to prop up her popularity, and the ratings are now in her favor. She also comes with a certain kind of background about the kind of policies that she lives for, the kind of advocacy that she has, her background itself in the Democratic Party. And I think she's had a really fabulous speech of acceptance at the DNC. So she is on very solid ground, although one must admit that the candidature of Donald Trump is very formidable as well.
Right. Padma Rao, if I could ask you about a reintroduction, so to say. She used the speech to reintroduce herself to the American electorate. She said that she came from a beautiful working-class neighborhood, born to Jamaican and Indian immigrants. What does it mean to really have an Indian origin person, Indian origin politician on the ballot in the United States?
Hi, Parikshit. Thank you for having me on your show. I do agree that, it's all very exciting and thrilling for us in South Asia, but I found the speech itself, I found her very vague on many policy issues. And she's still seen as a bit of a doppelganger. She's African-American when she faces those voters, like in Georgia recently. She's South Asian at other times. And I say this because I have family in the US and they're not all of Indian origin. And when I hear them speak, there's a general feeling I get from them, what is her identity? Also, her parents' role may have been middle class, but she's really seen as an upper class professional San Franciscan. And she's not a great speaker. She's notorious for what her critics call word salads, though she spared us some of that in today's, in last night's speech. And, Americans by and large don't like complicated speech with vague, esoteric ideas. They want you to tell it like it is. Now, on that, I think she fell short at this speech. She was very vague on spelling out policy issues. And also, the last point, she keeps calling for more unity, less divisiveness. And yet it's an irony that she keeps emphasizing her otherness, her South Asianness, her African-American roots. I mean, even the whole turnout, yes, the Obamas, I can understand, the former president, but there was Oprah, there was, Stevie Wonder, there was, where people, yes, Oprah and Stevie Wonder. So I think this top note, I don't know how, I'm not in favor of repeatedly invoking diversity when you emphasize diversity. So these are the points I have to make specifically about her speech.
All right, let me go across to Pramit Pal Chaudhuri now. Pramit, she offered a new way forward to the American population. She said, just think about having a US president in Donald Trump, someone with no guardrails, someone who is unserious. But if he does win, then the consequences for America could be very, very serious. Do you think the American voter will see her? And did she, according to you, emerge as a strong alternative to Donald Trump?
Well, I think it's important to realize that a lot of the vote that she's garnering or the support she's getting is largely an anti-Trump vote. The Democratic base obviously will vote for whoever the Democratic Party puts forward. But the real battle is for roughly the independent vote, maybe about 15 to 20% of the electorate, which is conservative leaning, but a lot of which is very unhappy with the choice of Trump, who they do not see as presidential material. And if you looked at Trump's last set of interviews and public speeches, he's showing his age. It's pretty clear that he is having, should we say, problems sticking to message and so on. And on top of that, there's about a 10% roughly of the Republican vote, which is very unhappy with the idea of a president who is effectively a convicted felon. So therefore, this group is now switching towards Harris. But this is something, a group that Biden probably would have had a better ability to hold on to. He's very much more seen as a centrist. So for Harris, the tricky part now is to be able to hold on to the center vote, even though I would say ideologically and instinctively, she is much more to the left. So she has to be very careful between now and November not to have this group of voters, this central group that has now moved away from Trump or made from the Republican Party, not suddenly say, actually, no, she's not. She's nothing but a left-wing version of Trump. And that's something she has to be very careful about.
Right. Right. Major General Katoch, as of now, things do look good for Kamala Harris. If we look at her campaign funding, she's raised over $500 million US compared to something like $348 to $378 million raised by Donald Trump's campaign. At the same time, in key US polls, she is anything between 1 to 3 points leading over Donald Trump. But if you look at the swing states, out of 7, she is leading by a few points in just 2 swing states. How do you see things for Kamala Harris right now? It'll all boil down to those 6 or 7 swing states in America.
Thank you, Parikshit. Yes, absolutely. It is those swing states which is actually going to make the difference, because the Republicans have their hold in their states, and the blue corner is where the Democrats are. And that is not going to change regardless of who are the candidates from either side. So the swing states are going to actually make the difference as to who takes on the presidency. As far as the cash flow is concerned, I think as of now, both have got an equal advantage. So earlier, Trump had the advantage, but now that disadvantage as far as the Kamala Harris camp is there, that has been made up. So, but I think, what the previous speaker said, what Pramit said, I'll totally go with that. It is just the beginning phase. And as of now, I think both sides are equally balanced. That tilt can take place on any one singular issue. So from now up to November is a long time to go. Even a day in politics sometimes is a long time. So we'll have to see how it goes from here. But as of now, I think it is very equally balanced. And her appeal to the middle-class voters, her youth is going to impact a very large section of people, despite everything else. She's young, and that is going to make a difference. But Trump has a very solid base. Trump is seen as a person who is not going to compromise on various issues. And that appeals to a very large section of the voters. He's an outlier in that sense. He's not a conventional politician. He's an outlier. And many people like that. So it's going to be, in my view, it's going to be a tough race. But as far as India is concerned, it really doesn't matter. We have bipartisan support for the Indo-US relationship from both sides. So to that extent, it won't matter who gets the presidency. I think it will matter to the world, especially the way future conflicts are going to take place. Trump will be there to reduce conflicts. I don't think the same can be said for the democratic setup. Back to you.
Right. Ambassador Bhatia, did you see any big foreign policy changes or hints in her speech? Because what one gets a sense of while hearing her comments on Ukraine or even the Israel-Hamas war, it seems continuity. The only things probably which stood out was when she forcefully said that I'll not cozy up to dictators and I will make sure that, the support for Israel continues. So did you see continuity in foreign policy?
I think she pretty much continued with the current line, the kind of approach that she has to both the conflict situations in Ukraine and in West Asia are unexpected patterns. She did have a voice of empathy for the aspirations, the security and dignity of the Palestinians. But I think in general, the way she stood out for the security of Israel, she is consistent on those two issues of conflict situations. I think she did have a fairly robust, or tried to put a very robust face as being the supreme commander and making sure that the U.S. wins the 21st century and not China. So that was, I think, something that has been said in many ways, but Kamala wanted to make sure that she's also heard in a similar vein. Her comment about not cozy up to dictators was basically, I think, to put a counterposition to the kind of approach that Donald Trump is often associated with. And I think one of the things that she did try to make was that she would be different from what Donald Trump promises to be or had been in the past. And that may be good or bad, but I think that's the kind of messaging that she wishes to put out to the American public. I agree with some of the assessments that these are still early days, and the way that it pans out over the next couple of months will be extremely crucial. She will have to make sure that she doesn't get bogged down on any particular issue, which the other side might take advantage of. It's going to be a tough battle, as I said.
Right. Padma Rao, when we speak about her age, she's 59 versus 78, that is Donald Trump. Do you think she's someone who will appeal to the young American population, especially American women? And the reason why I also ask, because the constitutional right to abortion has been a hugely debated topic in the United States, and how she approaches this during campaign will be seen.
Well, again, on abortion specifically, since you mentioned it, she wasn't very specific, so it really remains to be seen in the weeks ahead how specific she's likely to be on that issue. To your question about whether being 59 is going to make a difference to young American voters, if you're talking about Generation Z, I don't think so. I think for Generation Z, everything over 50 is over the hill. I don't wish to be so, I'm being a little, sort of flippant about it, but I don't think it makes a difference I personally don't think her being 59 and as opposed to, I think what the real issues are employment, the usual issues that make or break any election. I think those are going to be determining the outcome of this. But just on foreign policy, I just wanted to say something which I heard one of the speakers comment on earlier. She's said, this is a big question that involves us, since we were talking about how it's likely to affect India. She said, as commander-in-chief, I will ensure that America always has the strongest, most lethal fighting force in the world. In fact, President Biden, whose every policy move she has actually been seconding, has repeatedly said that he wanted to cut down on spending on that so-called lethal fighting force. So I really, again, there's no, particular stand that she's taken on that issue. Then setting aside her position on Israel, Hamas, and also on NATO and Russia, let's talk closer to home. There's no clear Pacific. What will U.S. policy on China be, for instance? What does the United States intend to do to contain of the damage that was caused by this, very abrupt withdrawal from Afghanistan, like the proliferation of arms, various other question about how good it's going to be, what's going to change or what's not going to change for bilateral relationship with India. Of course, the substantial issues will not change. I agree with that. But there will be little irritants which the Democrats are obliged to bring out, every now and then, to comment on every now and then, like human rights, like, for instance, what's happening in Indian society today, these horrific rapes and murders. These are issues which the Democrats, it's almost written in the book, they will comment, and they will be irritants to an extent. And also we have to remember that the Mr. Modi's government in India is also in a reduced majority. So that is likely to affect the fallout of likely to have a fallout on the bilateral relationship with whichever party comes to power, whether it's the Democrats or the Republicans. Parikshit.
All right, we are going to take a break, but I'll request Pramit Pal Chaudhuri, Major General Katoch, Padma Rao, Sundarji, and Ambassador Bhattacharyya to stay with us. We'll be right back.